I'm ready to rock whenever you are.
All right. Let's get a little sound going on here, a little bit of vibes. And then I'm going to stop the recording and start it so they have a spot to place from. And we're counting. All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Grassroots Living Soil podcast. Today, we've got a very special guest with us today. Michael Box from Sustainable Village is with us. Hi, Michael. How you doing today?
Pretty good, Tyler. It's pretty good. Nice to be here with you.
Yeah, man. Thanks for taking the time out. I know you got a busy day and all kinds of children running around everywhere and things. So
it's true. Yeah, it's a busy life here in Colorado.
Yeah. Beautiful, beautiful. Well, I brought you on here today because you're a very important piece of continuing through the process that we started with Scott from Crescent Soil Services. Where we started out in a tent, and we've been a mildly successful grower with smaller individual pots, and we've decided we're going to take the leap to living soil, and we're going to take that tent and all of our current equipment and go into living soil. So we've got a 4x4 tent, and we put a 3x3 bed in there. We've looked at some tips that Scott's given us about airflow and access to the tent, and knowing that most likely our canopy is going to get a lot larger than the actual layout of the bed, which I think is a very important point for people to understand. Is like, we've got this bed and we're going to put multiple plants in there, or one plant in there, and most likely that canopy is going to get much larger than an actual bed, which is for us having our trellis. And if anybody goes on to Amazon and looks at the Grassroots Living Soil beds, that's sold through Sustainable Village, and they've taken upon themselves to give you options for a double trellis. So you can do multiple trellis pieces through there and really take this to a whole nother level. We've got one customer in Michigan, I'm probably going to pronounce the Instagram name wrong, but Mabimbo. And he's got these 3x3 beds with these double trellis, and he can just roll them right in his flower room and flower them and have another set that's vegging and roll them right back in. So he's got no downtime in that situation, and he's running his blue mat system. So that kind of shows you a little bit of the availability there, movement. But, you know, getting back to our situation, our conversion, you know, we've planted our plants, we've got everything inoculated. Now the goal is just to maintain a static moisture level. The thing we've learned about living soil is we want, you know, a static moisture level, and we want those microbes to be able to cycle nutrients for us 24/7 and never stop to do that. So, want to bring you in there, and if you want to take a second and actually tell everybody how we met, because I think that's kind of interesting as well.
Oh yeah, that is a fun story. Yeah, you know, I've been doing a lot of things in this world in agriculture and cannabis and irrigation stuff for probably, you know, close to 20 years, and but I've been with Sustainable Village in the role that I am now for maybe 2.5, 3 years, something like that. And it was right about 3 years ago, I think, that I was just starting here, and we were looking at some different products out there on the marketplace, and I kept seeing these grassroots fabric raised beds and thinking, these are freaking cool. Like, they look neat. They seem really practical. And I think you were just starting to release the living soil liner at that time. It was right about when that was coming out. This is a really great idea. And I love the PVC thing. You know, you got talking about this client you have, but you can really build whatever you want out of those PVC fittings, those kind of furniture grade, you know, buildable PVC fittings. And well, anyways, I looked up Grassroots, and I called up the company, and Tyler answered the phone. You answered the phone there, Tyler, and I said, "This is Michael. We're at Sustainable Village and Blue Mats." And he said, "Oh, we love Blue Mats. You know, a lot of our clients use Blue Mats. I'm so glad you called." I was like, "Wow, I'm so glad to talk to you." And we kind of hit it off in this way, and it was, you know, it was kind of a match made in heaven, really, as far as like a synergistic business connection, because the products do fit really well together. You know, the Blue Mat irrigation systems and the Grassroots fabric beds seem to be a very, very popular combination with the the living soil growers out there, and for good reason. Yeah. I know you were talking with Scott one of your last shows there. You just kind of filled me in on that. What did you guys wind up with for a container?
We went with a 3x3 living soil raised bed and a 4x4 tent, just because we want to be able to get in there and access things. We want extra airflow, and we want to be able to break those microclimates. We're going to be putting fans down in the corner, pushing air up to the top and circulating the air from the bottom, and moving things around constantly and having a good airflow, assuming that the canopy is going to get much larger than the bed itself.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Those raised beds they're such a great way to grow, and from an irrigation standpoint, that's the first thing we want to look at, or it's one of the first things we want to look at is what container sizes are we looking at here? Are we doing individual pots? Are we looking at raised beds, or people growing in like native soil right in the ground, or what's going on, and then we create the solution to irrigate those containers, and that's and that grow system. So maybe we can talk about a lot of different things around this, like what are certain options for someone that might have that. They could hand water their bed, right? Like they can get a watering can and water it, or use a hose with a wand.
I have to be there 24/7.
Yeah.
Well, be able to get out there and and deal with your kids, or go on a vacation, or go hit the slopes. So
sure.
And I can see where hand watering does work for those situations, or hey, maybe I'm going to overwater a little bit and then not worry about it for a couple of days, which I think that's a big mistake. But I see people doing stuff like that.
Yeah, for sure. And so that's you hit the nail on the head. Really, it's it works, keeps plants alive, and there's a lot of people who swear by hand watering because they feel like they can really understand their plants really well. And another option might be like a drip system of some sort, like a drip irrigation system, which that runs off a timer or whatever, or maybe you run it manually. And those are all options that will keep your plants alive. And then there's what we specialize in, especially for cannabis growers, is the blue mat watering systems. And for those that don't know, that this is these are blue mats, and I'm holding in my hand right now a blue mat carrot. And what this is, it's a ceramic cone with a plastic cap, and it has a thin kind of 3 millimeter silicon line that runs through the top of it. And one side of that silicon line is connected to a water source under constant pressure. And then the other is connected to some sort of water delivery system. And the carrot itself acts as a valve. So it's an on-off valve that's filled with water, has a ceramic base, and that ceramic base is buried in the soil. And as the soil dries out a little bit, the ceramic dries out, which pulls a small amount of water from inside the cone into the ceramic. And that creates a negative pressure inside the carrot. And that negative pressure pulls on a little membrane, pulls down on a membrane, and that opens a valve in the top and allows water to flow through. So it's as simple as the soil. It's, again, these carrots, they're moisture sensing valves that are completely analog and mechanical. There's nothing electric about them. They're under constant pressure. And the end result is, as soon as your soil moisture level drops just a small amount, the watering system will turn on just a small amount. And it's a kind of a variable flow valve too. So if it's drying out quickly, the flow rate is going to increase and it's going to water more. And you can let this let water just drip right out of the tubing, or through a series of distribution drippers, or what we use mostly in raised beds these days is the blue soaker hose, which is it's a soaker hose made out of Tyvek, or a material very similar to Tyvek. And so it doesn't have emitters, it just pressurizes, and then it waters through thousands of little kind of like micro holes all over. Water will kind of weep out of it. And it operates at a very, very low pressure, which is not common for drip tape or any kind of soaker hose. Those usually need something like 8 to 10 PSI as a minimum, whereas our blue soak will run at 2 PSI, very evenly at 2 PSI. And that makes it very compatible with the blue mats. And so we combine these types of products together to make these kind of blue mat watering systems. Some people don't know this, but most people do. I think blue mats are manufactured in Austria. Sustainable Village, we're the exclusive sole importer of blue mat products for the U.S. So we bring them in, and we have other partners and resellers that also carry blue mats and use them. But we've taken a lot of these blue mat products from Austria, and we've combined them with products that we've sourced from all over the planet, really, a bunch of different countries. One raised bed might have parts from 5 or 6 different countries in there. And we'll build these systems together and combine all these parts and pieces and to create the blue mat watering systems that are, become quite popular.
And that's why I send people directly to you when they come at us and they ask us, or mention, hey, I'm going to go with this blue mat watering system. I'm just like, oh, stop, hold up right there, because, my side of it's super easy. You're going to have an outlay, a space that I've got to fill, and I've got to fill that. And mine's the easiest job. So I think thankful for people like you that get to fill in the gaps and do all the math and considering, the drip line per square foot and how many carats to put and all that kind of stuff. I'm glad I don't have to figure all that out for you guys. So
and it's tricky, like we have some different kind of consultants out there that work with us, Scott being one of them. He's a great blue mat designer. Tad Hussey's and Ben Higgins up at Kiss Organics, they do great jobs doing blue mat designs as consultants. But for the most part, there's not a ton of other people that do it besides us. And it's because it is a little complicated, and it takes experience to get it right and get them designed properly. And it's a big thing, you can certainly figure it out. There's a learning curve with blue mats, but then you can figure it out, and really anybody can do it. It's not overly complex, but some people can get frustrated sometimes if they kind of dive into a blue mat system, or really any irrigation system. I've seen people, and I've done it myself, screwed up just real basic drip irrigation systems, not understanding, pressure and flow rates and things like that. So, if people to try to maybe jump in there and do it themselves right off the bat without really learning, might experience a small amount of frustration because they haven't seen something like this before or used it before. But with just a little bit of practice and understanding these as tools, you can become an expert, very quickly, and just at least for one person to use their own system. Let's see, I guess we were, back to that raised bed, after we look at container sizes, the next thing we want to look at is water source. So what's your water source? That's a really common question. Yeah. What's your water source, and what do you want to put through the lines? Do you want to run just water, clean water through the lines? Do you want to run any kind of nutrients or anything like that? We can do that all with the blue mat systems, no problem. Most of our commercial living soil growers tend to just run clean water through the blue mats, and then they'll top dress in whatever kind of liquid inputs they want to. Every week or two they might come through with a wand and put in some compost tea, and the blue mats really respond well to that, in that you have your moisture levels kept at this really static level because of the blue mats. You come through and you hand water in some compost tea, something like that, and then the blue mats just kind of turn themselves off because your moisture levels go a little bit above where they want to sit. So the blue mats turn themselves off, the bed dries back down to the level you want it at, and then the blue mats kick on again and keep doing their thing. And when you're working in environments like a greenhouse or any indoor space, really, anywhere, you're always going to have different microclimates in any kind of, even in a little grow tent. But if you're in a warehouse or something, one corner of the room might be hotter than another. If you're in a greenhouse, if you have airflow moving across the greenhouse, one side's going to end up drying out faster than the other. And all those things get accounted for with the blue mats, so that each little zone of watering is just going to maintain its own steady nature. If you have a hot day outside, the plants are drinking tons of water, the blue mats are going to maintain a really even, consistent moisture level in the, and then just like they will if it's a cloudy day and the plants aren't drinking at all. And the crux of this whole situation is that static moisture level, and it's the response of the soil biology to that environment. So that soil biology, that everybody's so interested in, all those beneficial bacteria and fungi and little critters, in there, they all have these zones of operation where, if the soil gets too wet, they're going to go dormant. If the soil gets too dry, they're going to go dormant. But if they're kept, and you kind of got into this earlier, but if they're kept right in that Goldilocks zone, like not too dry, not too wet, we call it hydro-neutral zone, if you want to be some scientific about it. And that if they're kept in that zone, the populations of all those organisms are going to grow dramatically. And whatever their job is, whether it's solubilizing phosphorus or transferring nutrients or, fixing nitrogen out of the air, whatever that job is, those microorganisms are going to do them 24 hours a day. And that increased work potential has results in an increase in yield and healthier plants and that sort of thing.
Because the plant's more efficient, right? At that point, and has to work a lot less harder to produce what it needs to.
Yeah, there's that, and again, it's just those populations, and it's like the health of those organisms in the soil. We're really doing the work. That's kind of the deal with living soils. You're not adding fertilizers to a sterile grow medium. You're relying on the organisms in the soil to be like little power plants or factories of fertilizer, and to create that stuff and make the plant available and create the conditions to do that. And to give them a home. It's almost like you're not even really watering the plant at all. You're watering the soil. And that's really the focus, is to look at the soil as this body. It's like an ecosystem. And how can we maintain that ecosystem? And this really how do we create homeostasis in this ecosystem? And not having big, wet, dry swings is part of that. And really the only one, one of the best ways to achieve that. And I think the only way to really do it well, I think, is with the blue mats, honestly. There's a lot of drip irrigation systems that they're starting to, like some of the best high-end drip irrigation systems that might, say water like a rock wool garden or something like that, right? In hydroponic settings, they have their drip systems not just like turning on once a day to run, but turning on every half hour or something, and giving very small amounts of water. But again, it's all on a timer, and there's no feedback between the plants and the grow medium and that timer. So, you don't, if you have one side of the room or the greenhouse or something that's cooler or is not using as much water, or it has a different, strain in it, that it's not as thirsty as the one on the other side, there's no accounting for that. So to have a product like the blue mats that does account for that, it really puts the plants in the driver's seat for irrigation. So sometimes we'll call it like root demand irrigation. What you'll see, it's really wild. Like if you put some of these blue mats in the ground, and your plants will grow out, and then at the end you'll be cutting the plant back or whatever, pulling the root ball out, pulling the blue mats out to clean them or something, and you'll see the hole where that blue mat carrot was sitting it's just thick white roots all around it. There's no soil touching it anymore. And what the plant has now like wrapped itself around the carrot, and it's put its hands on the control knob. So 100% the plant is now controlling how much water the plant is like physically opening and closing the valve on its own water supply. And
I've seen that, and that's the science behind, oh my God, what's happening there? Why is these just cluster of roots under this soaker hose and around this carrot? And that's such a good point, that the plant's grasping that and saying, oh, I know that this thing's turning this on and off for me. So we're going to huddle these dry roots by here and cycle this more often or less often. So that's beautiful. I love to hear the science behind things that you see.
Yeah. And it's, so I mean, really what it comes down to too is like those roots are wrapping that ceramic cone, and those root exudates, those little like openings on the roots that like open to create negative pressure fields to suck things into the root tips. Those are physically acting. Like if you have this carrot wrapped in root exudate in roots, they have all these exudates pressed up against them, and they can open and close and exert pressure on that carrot, and and then that's what's like physically changing the pressure inside the carrot and opening and pulling on that valve. So it's again, you've given the plant like a handle to operate its own irrigation.
Yeah. I've never heard it explained that way. I've listened to you so many times on podcasts, man. You're dialing this in, man.
Yeah, that's yeah. Usually, I usually save that little part of the story for the people at the trade shows who have obviously been imbibing in the products of their labor. Here's something really trippy, man.
So getting back to our 3x3 in our tent, I want to know, is that at the point where we can still do some sort of a gravity fed, or should we look at your guys' pump system?
Right. Okay. Great question. So a 3x3 tent, I'd go with the gravity system, or I'd go with just a pressurized system. So our systems, the supply lines for the blue mats need to be held at a constant pressure. And that pressure, we're good operating anywhere between 15 PSI is our max pressure that we want to mess around with, all the way down to like 1 or 2 PSI, depending on if we're using the blue soak or not. If we're just using drippers, then we can get away with us down to 1 PSI. If we're using blue soak, I'd like to see a solid 2 PSI just to get even coverage. Now, the way you can achieve pressure is through a pressurized like water system, like a hose bib or something, right? Like you might have a hose spigot, and you can screw a pressure reducer right onto that, and just have it open.
If I have good water.
If you have good, if you have good water in wherever your grow space is, whether it's on the farm or in your basement or whatever. The other option. If you want a pressurized system, we do sell these pump kits. We assemble pump kits that are basically a pressure sensing pump and a pressure accumulator tank, and then all the kind of components that go into that. But you can have a reservoir that sits on the ground, and then you have a very small. It's like these small SureFlow pumps. They're like a little bit bigger than a coffee cup, kind of, and then they mount on the wall. And then we have a pressure accumulator tank off like usually around a 4-gallon pressure accumulator tank next to it, and those we were able to maintain constant pressure systems with those too. They work great, especially if you want to feed things, or some people like to run, like they RO their water, or clean their water or something, and put that into a reservoir. And then if you want to use that water to feed into, and you have that in that reservoir sitting on the ground, like you don't have the ability to raise it up or anything like that. If you, again, 3x3 tent, no problem. We can do it like a 5-gallon bucket. So if you can just have like a shelf or something next to the grow tent that the bucket can sit on, the way you calculate pressure in gravity systems is you take the head, which is the vertical height of the water source, and we divide that by 2.31, and that results in your PSI. So PSI equals the head divided by 2.31. So if we take about 5 feet of vertical height, and we're measuring from the top of the soil surface to the water container, it's gonna. If we go up about 5 feet, we've hit just over 2 psi, which is where we want to be. So all you need is about 5 feet ahead to get nice good pressure for even watering with the blue soak. So you would have a 5-gallon bucket. It could be any size reservoir. Sometimes people will take like a plastic tote that fits nicely on a shelf or something like that and put it up there.
I've seen that.
And we can just drill a hole with a little bulkhead fitting in it. And we usually run like an 8 mm line for this size system. So that our supply line is very thin, we can get away with watering a lot of plants with a very small diameter supply line because our flow rates are always very, very low compared to a traditional system. Anyways, we'll run out of a bulkhead, 8 mm line down to the 3x3 bed. And we have a few options in a 3x3 bed. One, we could just do something as simple as 1 carrot and a spiral of blue soak. With an end cap on that. So you could run the whole thing off 1 carrot, no problem, right? I mean, and it's something like that's gonna, if we're in the bed, you're looking at maybe $25 worth of $30 worth of equipment or something like that, and then some supply line in your reservoir. We could also do and I might recommend this as well. If it's just one bed, you might want to get a little bit more control, a little more slightly boutique kind of experience here, and maybe have several carrots with some distribution drippers. And that way you can really focus on the different zones of the bed. So if you're doing like multiple plants, like maybe you're doing 4 plants in
4
that
different
3 by 3.
strains maybe or something.
Yeah, sure. So you have a carrot by each plant with a string of distribution drippers. So you're just each like quadrant of the bed's getting its own watering, so then and they're individually done like that. I mean, that's probably what I would do in a small circumstance like that. If I had a 3 by 3 bed and that was all I had, and then you could run it off a gravity fed reservoir. And then all you got to do is keep that reservoir topped off. If you want to feed something, you want to put some of that, really great concentrated biology that you've got in that reservoir and mix it up a little bit, and it'll just feed right through the blue mats and to give them that nice even feeding. Or you could top dress it in and then just feed water through. But that's about it. I mean, that's really all it would be.
So you could have that tote set up there, or 5-gallon bucket set up there, and even put a small float valve in there to an RO system. And once you have this dialed in, then you're not watering. I mean, then at that point, then you're just worried about your feedings.
That's totally correct. I like it's great. Like when I set my gardens up in the springtime, we plant things out. I've got all kinds of different greenhouses and kitchen gardens and raised beds, and we've got kind of a little permaculture farm up at my place in the mountains here, and we we'll get stuff set up in the springtime, and I dial the blue mats in and all the raised beds and everything I've got going there, and it's great because I do it in the springtime, and then I don't think about watering again until October or November, when I'm tearing everything down and to winterize it. So it's one of these things, irrigation and watering. It's a critical part. I was actually out at a big farm this morning down south of Boulder here. It's a big hay farm, actually. We were putting it's like more on an ag side. We do a lot of ag style irrigation as well. So if anybody out there is like a hemp farmer or whatever and needs ag irrigation, like row crops, multi-acres, we can do all pumps and filters and lay flat and anything you could think of, and we'll have that all custom designed out for you. But the thing is, watering takes up so much time. Like these hay farmers, they're watering 24 hours a day all summer long. They're running their systems, and it's so much work. But to take that out of your grow experience, and it's not like it's no work, right? Like you got to like watch it and do some maintenance, and maybe somebody trips over a line, and who knows? There's things that can happen, but you have so much more time to just be with the plants, just to really because that's the thing, that's the great thing about hand watering is it puts you in the room and it makes you be there. But so we're not trying to take that away, as far as what's the best way to grow, or be a home grower, or be a professional grower, or whatever. What we want to do is we want to be able to spend that time more focused on the health, like actually looking at the plant and maybe doing some,
maybe writing down about your growing,
maybe keeping some notes
in a journal.
Boy, that's a great tip. Keep notes. I mean,
we wish more people did that, didn't we?
I'm horrible at it. I always want to have these wonderful journals about my, gardens and stuff like that. But it's something that you think about in the spring before all the work starts, and then the work starts and you don't have time to do it.
I completely agree. Cool. So we've got our 3x3 bed set up. We've got our boutique way of doing it, which would be 4 carrots with our distribution drippers, not our soaker hose, to dial things in. Or you could go with 1 carrot and soaker hoses. The only question I have, do you guys still promote? I remember when I first saw this and you had a gravity fed system, sometimes you would have 2 inlet lines coming down just in case something got clogged or something wasn't working right. Is that still suggested or needed?
Yeah, we do. We generally do that with any kind of gravity system. For the most part, it's not 100% necessary, but it is highly recommended. So if you have a reservoir, like gravity reservoir, that have 2 lines coming out of that bulkhead, or 2 bulkheads coming out of that reservoir, with 2 lines coming down into your grow space and making a loop with a little flush out valve at the far end. and what that does is help equalize the pressure within the system. So especially if you have multiple pots, like say instead of that 3x3 bed, you had like 8 5-gallon pots or something in there.
Okay. Yeah.
And you would want to come down off your reservoir and make this loop, and then when that loop passed each pot, you would cut into it. You would put
your tea,
a reducing tea in, and the carrot would go up to the pot. So you don't want to have a situation where you have like just one straight line of supply tubing, because the pot at the far end is going to have a different pressure than the pot right at the beginning. And they can change too, especially like those, and like say one plant in the middle starts drinking a lot, that's going to screw up the pressure down at the far end. So having a loop like that helps equalize the pressure and keeps the same amount of pressure pretty much consistently throughout the supply line.
Okay.
But yeah.
So
I had a question for you, Todd. I just got thinking about this. I'm thinking about 3x3 bed. Now, you had a 3x3 bed in a tent. Would you just set that right on the floor of the grow tent, or do you put it up on something? Because I get this question a lot when we supply your beds, because as you know, we sell a ton of grassroots beds, and we love selling them, and the customers ask, hey, I'm just putting in a dozen of these 120-foot long beds. Should I put these on pallets? Should I set them on gravel? What's the answer, man?
Thank you so much for answering that, because I think that we get like multiple emails per week of what we should do and what's going on. And I think what it comes down to is if you did have a tent and you set it on that liner, there's so many people out there that have done that and been successful that, it's hard to say, no, don't do that. But I do feel like setting this living soil bed on a flat surface is going to change the way things drain. It's not going to let things be as natural and as native as we're trying to go for, because that's the goal here. Is we want to replicate native soil. That's the point of us having this liner in there, is to replicate the sun drying out the soil from the top down, and that soil only drying out from the top down and not drying out from multiple different angles and preventing these dry pockets. So if we have this environment in this situation, and then we've got a flat surface on the bottom, that's like us growing in 18 inches of soil with a complete, shale. We've got 18 inches of soil, and we've got nothing at the bottom. And then that water's got to come down and go out like this, compared to in a normal system where it's going to come down through the positive part of growing medium, come into some sort of gravel solution, and just naturally move down and out of the system. So in my mind, we want at least a drain tray, because that drain tray's got channels and cavities in it for water to escape. But where people have had most success with this is, I would say, if they were to take hydroton clay balls or pumice rock and put it into that tray first, and then set their bed on top of it, you would have the most natural water flow down and then into the tray, and giving a space for that water to exit and leave the bed naturally. Now, this gets into all these cool questions about, now I'm going to do a sip system and have it wicking upwards and all that kind of stuff. And that's cool. That's a totally different category and everything like that. But still getting back to the natural side of things, is we want things to flow down and out of the bed naturally. We want that soil environment to hold that water, or hold an amount of water that it needs. And if it's got excess, it can leave and drain out. Over the few years, our customer service rep here, Bud, cool old guy.
Oh yeah, I love Bud.
Yeah. Awesome. Bud Sissio, a guy from the East Coast. He suggested a long time ago these really cool 12-inch by 12-inch snap together plastic tiles. So this is something that's available on Amazon. They're very commonly used in kitchens, around pools, and in high traffic areas where there's a lot of water, but you still need traction. So anybody who's interested in this, and you don't want to use rock or pumice or any of that kind of stuff, or let's say you don't want to use a tray, and you just want to throw these plastic tiles down on the ground of concrete, or on the ground of a tent, or in the basement, or greenhouse or anything like that, I promote these tiles because they've got even slots in them, and you can set the bed on top of it and it's going to drain down and out, and you're going to see the water exit from the sides and be able to clean that up. Now, the
Yeah.
goal with these systems is not to have a lot of runoff. If we see a lot of runoff, that runoff is going to be brown in color, and that's going to be, all of your positive electricity, all of your nutrients, your EC, your pH, your everything's just exiting the bed there. So we don't want to have that runoff. We want to retain that moisture and maybe have a few drips here and there. Do you agree with that, Michael? Did I go too far?
Oh yeah, no, that's all that tracks well with me and the things that I tend to recommend in those circumstances also. We'll see that well, we actually we have here in our office, I'm in my office here in town in Boulder, and we have a showroom here, and there's some grassroots beds set up with some irrigation, and but we put some in recently, and part of getting the blue mat set up is we need to hand water the beds to get the moisture level up to where we want it, and then we can set the blue mats to maintain that. So we can't use the blue mats to take totally dry, hydrophobic soil, and then it's not going to work.
You got to prime the bed and get it.
Yeah, we got to get the bed hand watered and get it. Okay, this is the level we want to set it at. We'll use the moisture meters to kind of confirm this is the moisture level we want it to stay at, and then we'll go from there. Now, in doing that, we were just, we just have those beds sitting on concrete floors in this circumstance here. And I put some wood chips in the bottom of the bed. That's what I did, actually. Nice. We had a big pile of wood chips. So I put a couple inches of wood chips down there, and then we put the soil on top of that. And it did allow it to drain quite a bit. And when we hand watered it in, you could see it, just like you said, there was a big brown puddle, on the floor next to it, which is, I was expecting that to happen because I knew we were kind of over watering it to get the soil mixed and hydrated. And
can you give us a little tour what you got in the office there? I don't want to pull you away from your power cord too much, but if you want
to let's take a look and see what let's take this computer for a little walk and see what we can do. See how long we last here. This is our little office here. Well, we've got all right, you still there?
Yep.
Okay, great.
How many employees do you guys have now?
Total, I think we have about somewhere 12 or 14 employees total.
Awesome.
Yeah. And these are our design offices. I've got about 3-4 guys working here. And then we have some people working remotely from home. Here's a raised bed. And then we have a whole warehouse up the street where we do all our fulfillment stuff. So in this raised bed, you can see behind me, it's a 2x12 custom living soil grassroots bed here.
Made just for the window.
Yep, exactly. Made just for that window for this. And I got a few different designs here. This first one, this is our manifold bed design, where we have, in this case, 3 strips, and there's a carrot on each end of that array. And I know this is a little funky doing this with the computer, but you can kind of see where there's one carrot here.
You got a manifold going on there. I like it. Manifold, man.
So when that valve turns on and off, it feeds into this manifold, and then that waters all 3 of these runs here. And that's repeated on the other side.
So is there a long carrot on one end and a short carrot on the other?
That's right. Yep. That's
okay.
Right. Beautiful. And then here we have one. It's this is a real economy pot kit kind of design where there'll be 1 carrot. And then
that's what I remember seeing when I first saw you guys, and we had just fabric pots. We didn't have raised beds. I remember seeing that.
Yep, and that's real common. And then, over here, here's a bunch of carrots with drippers.
Okay, so that's the boutique. That's what the boutique.
Yeah, it's a little more sensitive. It's more carrots, so you have to pay attention a little more. When you have a large commercial facility, it might not make sense. But for the home grower, I mean, this is essentially a 2x4 section we're looking at right here. I got 4 carrots in there. It's no big deal.
One question I'm asking real quickly there. I used your moisture meters, and I see you got that thing sticking out of the soil a little bit. I was trying to get that thing all the way down into the soil to where you didn't see any of that white tube.
You can do either one. Yeah, okay. You can do either one. It's probably good. And this one's reading a little wet. That's at 42 right now.
Uh-huh.
We're just screwing around with this bed.
And we want to be at 100, right?
Around 100. I know a lot of guys will run it in veg as wet as like 40, 50.
Really? Okay.
But yeah.
Well, thank you for showing us the 3 different
We
ways
got some other
that break
things
it
in here
down.
too. This is these are some filter systems we have for our ag stuff. These are capillary mats here, which are pretty cool. These are like felt mats. There's that are basically watered. I don't know if you can see this here. So we have this piece of felt under here, and if you set pots on top of here, and then it makes contact with that wet felt and wicks water up. So we're actually germinating a bunch of seeds right here, just by setting it on this mat. It's kind of a neat technology.
Is that the gravity or the pump system set up in the corner over there? I see with the barrel.
That is a pump system, yeah.
That's
here.
the pump system I'm used to seeing. Okay, cool. That's
tiny pump. That's built all with our Permalock fittings. This one is a little different than some of the ones that come out. I think we're going to change over those kits a little bit to use those Permalock fittings. We use a lot of those really nice, these Permalock fittings we get from Irritech. They're out of Fresno. Actually, it's an Italian company, but they manufacture their stuff down in Fresno. And they make really high quality fittings. So that's one of our suppliers. Here's a little inside info.
Beautiful. One question I had real quick is, if we're putting nutrients through this system, do you have to work out, like, kind of have to sense in time, okay, I know my kind of carrots are going to do this at this time, so I'm going to put the feed in at this time, and then, clean my reservoir out at a certain point, or?
Yeah, so, I mean, it depends on what we're feeding and how we're feeding it, whatnot. If you're doing a bunch of individual pots, say you're like a cocoa salt type grower, right? And you want to run your nutrients, your synthetic nutrients through it. You're just going to mix up a reservoir. Maybe you're going to probably use a pump kit to distribute it, or you might possibly use a gravity fed system. But you want to keep that stirred up, because it's going to take a while for the plants to drink it. Depending on how big they are and how many you have. So you want to keep an eye on that. You also want to keep your dilution rates really low. So again, if you're using a synthetic fertilizer, we want to recommend cutting that application rate down to at least 50% of what the manufacturer recommends. Mostly because you don't have any runoff. So a lot of times people fertilize with stuff, they'll like water until there's like a certain amount of runoff coming out the bottom, and of course that's just dumping a bunch of liquid nutrients that you just bought down the drain. But with a blue mat system, there isn't really any runoff, so any nutrients that go into the pot stay in the pot, and we can get away with using a lot less nutrients to begin with, because it all stay in there. And with organic-based fertilizers, organic fertilizers or biologicals and stuff like that, I mean, same deal. You mix it up a batch in your reservoir and you just like let it feed until it's done feeding, and then you switch back to clean water.
Okay.
As far as maintaining those and cleaning those systems out with organics, you're going to be worried about like biofilm, which is a bacterial growth that kind of occurs on the inside of reservoirs and irrigation lines. And that's going to happen with any system. We have a product called Biofilm Buster. It's really good at dislodging that the bacteria from the walls of the irrigation lines and then letting it flush through. If you're using synthetics or mineral-based fertilizers, you can get mineral deposits, that synthetic salt buildup essentially in your irrigation lines. And we just recommend using like Drip Clean. It's a really common product that helps solubilize those mineral buildups and keep your lines clear.
So that would be just additives you're going to put into your freshwater tank and you're going to switch over with a valve or with something. And
yeah, you can. That's one thing too. Like you can have multiple reservoirs feeding into your system, right? So you might have two, gravity fed reservoirs or two reservoirs on the ground that your pump system's connected, and you can just toggle between the two reservoirs with a valve. Like one could be full of clean water, one could be full of nutrients. You might want to just like run that nutrient for 2 days, and then wherever you're at, you turn that off, and then you go back to fresh water.
And then you're cleaning out your lines with those additives into the
Yeah, if you see buildups, and you can kind of use it preventatively or not. Like it's pretty amazing how much stuff you can actually run through these. I will say, like the drippers, those little drip emitters, or distribution drippers we call them, those are probably the weak link as far as getting clogged in the systems. So, when you're, for folks like that are running a whole bunch of pots, because we have people that will have like 2,000 of these, in one in each pot, and run salt stuff through them. And a lot of times we won't even use distribution drippers. I mean, you can get away with like 1 carat per 5 gallon and nothing else. It's not the best coverage, but it's if you have like a high capillary action in your medium, like if it has a lot of cocoa in it or something, and it's going to spread that water really evenly side to side, you can get away with just 1 drip point. What you'll see is the plants will actually grow a mound of roots underneath that.
I've seen that on Instagram.
Yeah, it's kind of wild.
That's awesome.
Yeah, if people want to check us out on Instagram, it's Blue Mat Watering Systems is our cannabis oriented handle, and there's some cool stuff there. Blue Mat Watering Systems. If you guys want to go to sustainablevillage.com, you can request a free quote. So we'll do a free design and quote for any Blue Mat system for anybody, and whether you're 2-3 plants in the basement, or 30,000 square feet of canopy, or whatever it is. We've done all that. And I mean, if you got 100 acres of hemp fields or whatever, we can do all these systems, and we do them very well. And we'll give you a free quote and design. We'll give you a parts list and a price and everything, no cost. Just give us a call, and we'll put all that together for you and see if it's something you're interested in. But yeah, it's sustainablevillage.com. And plus, we also have tons of grassroots products on there too, and we keep them in stock. So if you guys you need a bed tomorrow, give me a call.
If we're out of stock, we're commonly
right now, sitting there.
It's actually happened a few times in the last couple of weeks where people call me up and say, I need 5 more of these beds, this and that. And we're like, oh man, I'm sorry, we're out of stock, but I know who does have them right now. And then I see, boom, on social media, they post that they placed their order with you guys. So it's I'm not losing the business by any means, but they're getting what they need when they need it, obviously.
No, and we just absolutely love being partners with you in that way. So yeah, absolutely. And it's awesome. One of the only, it's as far as fabric beds or fabric pots, it's far and away, it's the only one we carry or recommend. And that's because we don't recommend stuff that we don't like, or we don't think it works. So, that's why it's such a nice, I like it because, we are able to provide a more complete package to our customers. But like, I wouldn't do it if it was a crappy product or something. So.
Well, thank you, Michael. And I think you've got a very high quality product. I think yours is a little bit more complicated than mine, but that's why I get to put the boat in your hands, the driving wheel there, and allow you to build these great systems for people.
Yeah. Thanks, man.
Yeah. Well, are there any other hot topic things coming up or changes for you guys, or anything that you want to cover real quickly?
We're just gearing up for the season. Our business is steadily growing pretty, this whole last year, we did a lot of systems. Each month seems to be busier than last. Traditionally, I know this is similar for you guys, starting in like March through end of June, it gets a little crazy, and lead times start to add up a bit. Sometimes 2020 was not a great year for logistics as far as shipping. I don't know if anybody involved in anything that requires.
We're seeing prices double, and I think that's one thing to bring into the conversation that I think a lot of people aren't going to realize is, we've just now actually have been just found out today, we've got, major price increases on our fabric, and then logistics and getting that fabric to us, and all the way around the supply chain is completely changed.
Yeah, absolutely. No, the same with us. There's a number of parts and pieces that are double. We bring in the Blue Mats from Europe, and our air freight costs from Europe have tripled since COVID started.
Tripled.
Yeah, and when you air freight stuff in, they use commercial airlines, the excess cargo space to do the shipping, and because there's nobody flying between Europe and the U.S. There is, but a lot less people. That's had an impact on the shipping rates. So yeah, anybody that's dealing with any kind of importing or shipping, domestically or internationally, it's crazy. And the border crossings, customs got really wonky this last year. Just bringing stuff. We have some parts that are made in Canada. I mean, it was harder to get stuff in from Canada than it was to get stuff in from like Asia, for instance, this year, because the Canadian customs they were really tight, and they didn't want to touch anything, and I don't think they wanted to interact with the U.S. counterparts or something. I don't know what was going on, but it was taking weeks to get through customs on the Canadian border. So, I mean, a lot of that stuff's resolved now, and we're doing our best to smooth those supply chain issues out. But I guess all this to say, if you're thinking about getting a blue mat system or a grassroots fabric bed, and I bet is get your orders in now, or start talking to us now and let's get it designed. Let's get that quote together. We'll get it just the way you want it. If you need to wait a month or two to pull the trigger, or 6 months, or whatever it is, that's fine. But let's get it set up, because it does get a little hectic in the springtime. So I guess as far as like what's coming up right now, I'm taking the opportunity to do some podcasts like this and talk to folks, but we're not going to have any time to do that. Come March, April, May.
Yeah, probably all the way through July, I'd imagine.
Yeah. I mean, we used to like slow down towards the end of June, early July, but last year it didn't stop until Christmas for a week, because everybody was taking a break. So I don't know. It's an industry that is exploding, and it's fun to be part of it.
It is. No, it's a lot of fun, and I can't tell you, man, how much I'm missing the events and the community that we had, and people coming to us and showing us the amazing flower that they've grown and how happy they are with everything. I think I'm really missing that community this year, obviously.
Yeah, I mean, you and I know have seen each other at a bunch of different trade shows and events and things like that over the years. I think maybe we were at Emerald Cup together. That was like one of the first times we met in person. Actually,
Yeah.
a few years ago.
That's the one I miss the most, man. Honestly, that's that's
Yeah.
the best event out of them all, for sure.
Mm-hmm. But I've been to some great little ones too. Great little conferences. And, I just love what people are doing in the community and the innovations taking place, and
definitely.
Love being a part of it. I love supporting other people that are a part of it too. And over here at Sustainable Village, that's our history. I don't know if you know this, but like our owner Steve Troy, he first got started in this stuff up in Garberville in like 1971. He opened a health food store there in 71 in Garberville. He lived there for I think 15 years or so, and through the 70s and early 80s before he came to Colorado. And they were the first grow store definitely in like Northern California, maybe in the country, because they had this health food store, and they had all these hippies coming in, back to the land folks, the early weed growers up in those, this is like pre-war on drug stuff even, and pre-camp, all that. And they're asking for rock phosphate and chicken wire and bamboo sticks and like all these like grow supplies, and they were sourcing them through their health food store. And then they kind of built a clientele around that. And I think that was called Open Circle or Full Circle. Confused on that one right now. But then he went on to found Real Goods. Real Goods was a solar company, solar products, and another one called Jade Mountain that was based out of Colorado. And they were, that's all appropriate technology, sustainable living products, things like solar and gray water diversion systems, and different kinds of all kinds of really a giant thick catalog, all these products. So and then Sustainable Village started about 20 years ago. After those
20 years ago.
Yeah, 2001. So I think is when we started Sustainable Village, and I've been in and out of Sustainable Village for almost 14, 15 years. Actually came to intern here right after college back in like 2005. That's how I got involved, and then I've been in and out of
it was just straight agriculture back then that you guys were dealing with?
It was mostly working in developing countries. It was an interesting thing because he had those two companies, Jade Mountain and Real Goods, and they got sold to Guyam, which is a large solar company. And so we had a non-compete for several years in the U.S., but we were allowed to sell to developing nations. And so we had it ran it more as like a we weren't a nonprofit, but really those were our customers, NGOs, nonprofits that were doing development work. So we were developing like solar lanterns and different products like that could be used in very, very low cost things that like would really improve people's lives, but that also we could build business models around. So that was what I first got involved with Sustainable Village doing. And it was interesting too, like when they sold those companies, they bought this whole company and the line of products. They didn't want blue mats though. They didn't see any use in that. So we got to keep blue mats as our, we're the blue mat, keep the blue mat license. And then we've taken that and everything, most of the work we're doing right now is revolved around blue mats. So just goes to show you what can come out of, really underlooked products or technology and that sort of thing. So.
Well, and what it tells me is anything good doesn't happen overnight.
No.
Anything good takes a long, long time and a lot of hard work. And if you want to get somewhere good, I worked for this company for 5 years. Now we're doing podcasts and we're going everywhere, and it's a big thing. And you guys, you've been grinding Steve's been grinding for 20 years.
Well, more like 50, really. Yeah, it's really what it comes down to. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, he's a really experienced business guy, but has just amazing connections all over in the world of sustainability and appropriate tech and things like that.
I can tell talking to him that it brings a joy to his life.
He's a bit of a workaholic. I'll say that about him. He's a bit of a workaholic, and I think that's why he's been so productive, and we've been able to do so much. But yeah, there's a lot of experience collectively. I've been in agricultural stuff. I'm 38, so I've been doing this since I was about 16, I guess. So working on farms and I used to run a CSA and do a lot of permaculture design work and irrigation installation before I was doing this full time. And that I've got some other great designers, Izzy and Uriah are working here now. Taylor's on the phone. You might talk to her if you call in. And team of people is just really tons of experience, cultivation and agriculture. So you call up any of these people. Anybody answers the phone here is going to hope, I think, will impress you with their knowledge about plants and the irrigating of such plants. But yeah, that's us, and that's what we're doing here.
That's awesome, man. And
I think that's a great point. Like it's not. Some people just want to make a lot of money really quick, and just be super successful right out the gate. But it takes a long time, and it takes building up a lot of experience over decades to get.
Yeah, and you can apply that to living soil in a commercial environment, to where at first maybe we're going to lean on to synthetic nutrients, or mineral nutrients or other things at first, until that soil biology and that soil system has been through multiple harvests and is producing all the nutrients you need for that system, and applying science throughout that. So that's one important thing that I see some people say in conversations is like, yeah, we want to go living soil, that's the ultimate goal, but we have to have a harvest in the first 90 days. We have to get things going. It's got to be Jungle Boys quality, or I'm losing my investor. And I definitely think there's multiple ways of getting that and getting to the end goal with our systems. And you just got to apply science to it, and go back to listen to the first podcast and how Scott takes it to the next level of pushing his plants further every single day, and also benefiting that soil system. So anybody who wants to push their plants further, takes their plants to the next level, take their grow to the next level, pull something out of your pocket that just really drives your buddies crazy. I hope you're listening to this podcast, and I hope you're applying science. I hope you're eliminating bro science. I hope you're applying any tool or any calculation possible at all times. So yeah, is anything else you want to touch on there, Michael? Or are we doing pretty good here?
We can sit here and talk for a long time because we do it from time to time. But no, I think that's a great place to wrap up. Just, again, anybody that's interested in some blue mats, just go to sustainablevillage.com and click that quote request button, and we'll take care of you.
Beautiful, beautiful. Well, thank you so much, Michael. We try to keep these podcasts within an hour. I plan on doing some other very long-winded ones in the future. So thank you for listening. Thank you, Michael Box. Please, everybody, go onto their social medias, follow them. If you're at all interested in grassroots fabric pots and a raised bed and a living soil system, don't come to me. Just call Michael. Just let them, work out those things. They deal with a lot of customers. If you find us on Amazon, that's actually coming through Michael. That's not coming through us, because they've got the ability and the wherewithal and the employees to be able to make that successful, sustainable, and efficient. Everything I see from you guys, it's about efficiency. It's providing quality jobs and having quality people behind your back. So thank you so much for your partnership, Michael. And thank you, sir.
Thank you, Tyler. Thank you.
All right. Well, you have a great day.
Too.
Okay, cool. I'm going to hit turn the record off there, turn the sound off there. Okay, man. How'd you like that?
That was a great one. That was a good one. How about you? Did you feel good?
It was good. Yeah, I really liked it. It was good. I got to figure out how to stop